Well, hello everybody. Um, Mario, welcome to this
Hello.
conversation. Hello. I um I wanted to chat today about many things, but one particular conversation was about trust.
Yes, that topic.
How often do we even have this conversation?
Yeah, I think with trust, everybody have different point of view about trust, and it's like, even when you think about trust, it's like what comes to your mind is like, well, to be safe and to be like, in that space. So when you when we were talking about doing this live and talking about trust, I was like thinking about, okay, I'm gonna ask a lot of questions to Lale because it's like, well, I'm from Venezuela, I'm Latino, and we grew up on a like watching all the telenovelas, and everybody is against everybody, and you cannot trust anybody because you're gonna be like, you have to be always like protecting yourself from people, and that's the thing. Like, I would like to ask you, like, how can we trust again?
Ooh, wow. First, let's just have so like what you just brought up, I know right now you live in Miami, so you are
Yes,
actually in the United States.
yes,
You were born in Venezuela, and let's talk about that because,
yes,
when we think about Venezuela, most people don't really know what's going on. Venezuela is not one of those countries that's in the news all the time, like Cuba or maybe Argentina or Brazil.
yeah,
It's one that's a little more hidden.
yes,
And it's an interesting one because everyone I have spoken to, that doesn't mean it's the whole country, is hey, Lale, don't go there unless you
yes,
have people who are going to be with you,
that you can
and it
trust.
is that you could trust. Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. Well, I travel all around the world. I go to some cities that seem shady to some people, but I have a great time. And I'm willing to be aware of where not to go and when not to go and when to go take a walk by myself and when not to do that, you know?
yeah,
But there's also this lie that exists in the world of trusting is this thing outside of you, trust this person, but no one ever talks about how to trust you and your knowing
wow,
and what I used to call my gut instinct.
yes, like the intuition,
Yeah.
like yeah. Sometimes it's crazy because you have to have a connection with your body as well to be able to feel that trust with you and within you. And
Yeah.
that is so fragile. That is so like difficult, like to maintain with all of like what is going on around in our life, and like the news, like people, like maintaining that connection with you and your body, and really trust that your, as you say, like your gut instincts, like that's the lightest choice that you can make, is trust your body and trust you.
Wow, this is so not where I thought
Yeah.
this conversation was going to go, but I am so grateful we're
Yes.
having this conversation because how often are people allowed to say any of what you just said, you
Yes.
know? And I have to say, you are a gentleman, and gentlemen, got to be strong. You got to be the protectors. And
Yes.
women, we're supposed to be fragile and, wimpy and need that protection, where it's not any of that. It actually is each of us learning what is trust and what is that knowing of you and your body, the willingness to have great people in your life that also are willing to physically be in a situation to, make sure you're safe. But not what I see happens most of the time. We learn, I have to trust my dad, right? Trust
Yes.
his knowing to where he's taking me, right? But then I'm always relying on my dad or someone outside my world to be that for me. And a
Yes.
lot of times we do that with our husbands, our brothers, our friends, And I'm not saying to make that go away, but I'm saying, but what's actually within you?
Exactly.
I'm in Mexico City. I travel here a lot. And if you talk to people who don't travel very much to Mexico, Mexico itself has a reputation, kidnapping and other things. And yes, I have friends who've been kidnapped in Puerto Vallarta and Mexico City and elsewhere, but that's not the everyday life.
Yeah.
you know, it's and I could say the same thing in the US.
Hmm.
I have a friend who does an organization with trafficking, and there are many states in the southern part of the US nobody ever talks about in America
Yeah.
that is one of the highest in trafficking.
Wow.
I lived abroad. I'm moving to Dubai. There's so many stories. Everyone tells me, oh my God, you're going to move to Dubai. That sounds
Yes.
exciting, but it's not safe. It's an Arab country. But these are all the lies people put out there. But when you start, and I'm not saying don't listen to that, but I'm saying start to trust you and
Yeah.
your knowing. And let's talk about that because, for me,
Yes.
access consciousness, I found the tools 12 years ago. And I would say I was a place in my life. My relationship was amazing. I had an incredible husband. My two kids, we just had like the perfect family, if you want to call it that. We talk to each other, we share things with each other. My husband was not one who wouldn't let me do things. I didn't have that environment where I was this hidden woman. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been in business. I've started businesses, started my own businesses, and he was my partner in creation. However, there is this image, there is this responsibility that the minute he became my husband, he had to be my protector. He
Wow.
had to be the head of the household. Like there's all these things that come along as structures of family and relationship. But one of the things I realized with the tools of access consciousness, it was about empowering me to know what I know. But I didn't mean to devalue what my husband knows, my children know, my mother knows. But one of those tools was light and heavy. Like
Yes.
notice your bodies. When you're in an environment and someone's speaking, or you're in an environment, you're like about to walk down the street and your guts go like crunchy. Hey, don't go down that street because that crunchy, that heavy, there's something your body is giving you information about.
Yeah.
But when it's light, it's expansive, that's when it's more resonating true to what your points of views are. Like if my point of view is this street is dangerous, it's going to be light for me because that's my point of view.
Yeah. And another thing with that is also that your being knows. You know already. Like you have to know that you know. Within you, there's all the answers that you can have. Like everything that you can know, you already know. You know what I mean? Like it's like all the answers are within you, and you have to trust when something is light or no. It's like, okay, if I go this way, that's gonna contribute to me. It's gonna be it's like not the right and wrong choice, but it's like what is gonna be more like light. And I was were you telling me that I was like, wow, how many times I feel my body like going like, oh no, it's not that way, and I do it anyways. And after that, I said like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. You know what I mean?
But that's the thing. We tend to put more focus on the things that are heavy.
Yes,
Like, oh,
absolutely.
it's heavy. I got to make it, I got to fix it. Instead of what if heavy is steer the other direction, you know?
Yes.
Like even people who are even having a conversation with you and the whole time you're like feeling awful. You're like, oh my God, this is what's going on. But
Yes.
you stay thinking the longer you stay, the different the conversation is going to be, but it's
I
not,
know. I know. I know.
you
And
know?
how many
And he,
times
yeah,
we are like forcing ourselves to do something that we don't want to do because we don't want to listen to our bodies and we don't want to listen to our own instinct and trust. And it's,
yeah, but where did we learn? Like, I wish as kids, the first thing we were taught was light and heavy. Even though
yes. Yeah.
kids know light and heavy until they get to be about 7. By then, they've been pre-programmed by mom's views of light and heavy, or dad, or grandma, or our neighborhood, or our country's points of views. But if you look even at animals trust because they're present the whole
Wow.
time. They know if something is heavy, they walk away.
Right.
They know, hey, if you got a lot going on in your head, what do you know? I don't know, so I better dump you. That's what horses do. Like when you're not present with them, you're all in your head. Not all horses do that, but it's one of those things that animals, even dogs and cats, rabbits, they are so present. Like most of us don't know, but rabbits, they produce babies continuously. And that's one of the jokes, right? But when they tap into the future, like that next year, and there's going to be a drought, they will not reproduce.
Wow.
And you want to
I
laugh?
didn't know
I have a
that.
bunny. Yeah, I didn't either actually until Gary
Wow.
Douglas mentioned it many years ago. I think it was like 2012, 2013. He said that to me. And it was interesting because we got a bunny in 2012. And it was interesting. Like she was a baby female, and I had asked her, hey, would you like a mate? Would you like to have a baby? And bunnies don't talk to us like this. They give us information energetically. And it was really interesting. She said no. And I didn't know until later. Oh, she was aware also the next year how the weather was going to be.
Wow.
And it wasn't going to be the environment. Like animals are willing to actually trust themselves, trust their awareness. And that's something I really wanted to talk about tonight is
Yes.
how animals can also show us how to start to trust ourselves.
Wow. Lily, I have a question about like you were talking
Yeah.
about horses. When you are riding a horse or when you are like in this connection with the horses, how can you begin with the
Yeah.
trust about you and the horse? And for example, let's talk about people that are afraid of horses. How can they begin to trust
Yeah.
horses again?
Yeah. It's interesting because personally for me, I did not grow up having a horse as a little kid. Okay.
Yeah,
So
me too.
my environment, my mom was scared of animals. So we didn't have any dogs. It wasn't until I was an adult, I was married, and the gentleman that I was married to grew up with dogs, and we bought a dog. So it was very different for me. And then the horses, once in college, I rode a trail horse. You sit on a horse and the trail horse just takes you
Yeah.
wherever. You don't even have to think, you don't have to talk, you don't have to do anything. It just kind of, you know, takes you. And it wasn't until 2013, when I was in Costa Rica, that I really started to learn more about horses. And this thing of fear. Most of us look at the size of a horse, and that goes to the I can't trust, it's too big.
Yes.
We like if there's something like we connect with size. Even I've met so many people around the world, and so many gentlemen and so many ladies who are tall. And the first thing they want to do when they see, because I'm only 5'3", is they like want to shrink because being tall, they were from a childhood, like people were intimidated or scared of them, so they want to like make you feel comfortable. But a horse, what's it going to do? Shrink? It's not going to shrink. It's going to
Yeah.
be what it is, right? And in Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider, we actually start to have conversations and show people how to stand next to a horse, where not to stand, because a lot of times people want to go head on to an animal. Don't do that. That's like somebody coming at you and wanting to like put their fist in your face. You wouldn't like that. But if you come to the side and you start the engagement and the conversation, you're inviting them into your world, but they're inviting you into their world. And it's this true engagement. Same thing. You're going to have a business meeting with somebody. How do you do that? When you
Yeah.
move forward, there's that hand that goes out as this first place of maybe an engagement, right?
Right.
I'm a hugger, but that's a whole other story.
Me too.
35
Me
years
too.
in business, I learned you got to do the handshake where the handshake is required, but you also have to know, what does this person require? Because each horse is different. Each horse has its own story and its own way of how it's been treated. And you can't just jump right in and try to do that with a
Yeah,
horse.
of
You got to
course.
know, hey, let me bring the horse to me. So we also do energy flows, to show that movement of you're inviting that
Wow.
horse to come to you.
And also trusting the process that
Yes.
that's energy is gonna flow and connect with the horse. That's amazing.
And not everybody knows what that is, and I get that this is something, again, if you guys have never been on a horse or you want a horse, I also a conscious horse, conscious rider facilitator. I also facilitate leadership with horses. And one of the things that I always share with people is that, you know, you can be someone who's ridden 30 years and
Wow.
still you've got something to learn about the engagement and groundwork with a horse. And the same, if you've never been near a horse, there's this ease that can be there starting that engagement. And it's not about you just jumping on their back, it really is starting the conversation
Wow.
on the ground. Like Mario, I know you're in business.
Yes.
You have a construction business, you have lots of different businesses actually. So, the first thing when you meet a brand new client, do you just go tell them, hey, here's my invoice, send me money?
No. You start building a
No,
relationship. Yeah.
you start a
Yeah.
conversation and make sure, is there something here between you and the client? Do they
Exactly.
require something you have? There's a whole dance with business, but there's a whole dance with horses.
Wow. That's amazing. And in that process of communicating with the horse in conscious in this class that we are gonna have in Miami actually. So that's that's another
Yeah.
invitation.
Yeah.
I'm so looking forward to that class because I always wanted to know like the process of communicating with animals because they have their own way to communicate is through energy, is a different way to communicate. So can you
Yeah.
talk more about like the communication part with them? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? It's kind of interesting because yesterday I did an Instagram live with a mom whose daughter was diagnosed with autism. And we
mm,
talk about animals, but many of us as people, we learned going to school to communicate a certain way.
yes.
However, we also communicate via energy first before words. Like there's a
Oh,
lot of energy that gets condensed to create a word, but how often do you know you can finish a sentence for someone else?
oh, yes.
You know?
Happened to me all the time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm,
And so it really is like, there's there's steps, but there's no steps, if I could say it in that way, right?
okay.
Communicating with the horse starts before you're even near them.
Wow.
And it's the same thing with people. If you look like at a networking meeting or wherever you are, right? You're
Yes.
like, oh, I'd like to go have a conversation with this person. The actual conversation starts maybe with that eye contact.
Hmm.
It starts even before you're standing in front of them.
Yeah.
And it is also the ability to maybe pull their energy, and not everyone knows what that is, but we actually do. Our voice also pulls energy.
Our bodies. Yeah.
Our bodies pull
Yeah.
energy for sure. And so with a horse, it really is, there's no one size fits all, but in conscious horse, conscious rider, we start the conversation of the different tools. And then you knowing, hey, I'd like to go have this conversation with this horse. What's going to be required with this horse?
Wow.
The same way your client, you can't approach a client, let's say, for example, in Miami, who doesn't speak any English because Spanish is the
Yes.
dominant language there. You can't go just talk to him in English,
Yeah.
but you
They're
got
gonna be
to
like,
know
what?
something. Yeah,
Yeah.
you got to know something about them, right? It's the same thing. You start, what do they require? What can I say? It becomes this conversation of questions,
Yeah.
and to really allow the engagement. But a lot of times people think I'm talking, I'm engaging. And how many people talk at you? They're not really pulling you to have an engagement conversation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And is
And
that
for all of
part
you
of
guys who are,
receiving
yeah,
as well?
yeah,
Hmm.
it is. It's a total receiving thing, but it also is like everyone out there who's watching this, right? You guys, notice when I said that. Did you notice
Yes.
anything different with me and you
Yes.
when I said that?
Yeah,
Right?
totally.
And
Totally.
it and it's
Yeah.
not cognitive, it's not thoughts. It's just that there was maybe an energy and you just perceived, oh wait, I just felt like I leaned into you, or hey, I had some tingling energy going on. Like it's going to be a different experience for each of us, but that's the difference of a
Yes.
true engagement. You invite them to your world,
Wow.
they invite you to their world, and you create something that is going to be totally different that includes both worlds.
That's amazing. That's fantastic. It's like, wow. Oh, I
And
was,
I'm bringing a
I
little bit
know,
of right
I know,
voice for you tools here
I
too,
know.
as well as with the conscious voice.
Lali is also a right voice for you facilitator, so that's amazing, and thank you for that. That class is amazing. We are gonna have it in Miami also in May. Yes, I'm so looking forward to it as well. Oh my God. That's one of the classes that is
Yeah.
like, wow, so amazing. And going back to the horses and the receiving part, I would like to talk more about the receiving because also I was reading a book this week that is talking about money, and also money is about receiving and learning how to receive. And like plenty of us are like struggling with the receiving part. So can we talk more about like within the horses and us, like the receiving and gifting and
Yeah. I actually want to give an example. Like
yeah.
growing up, one of the cultural things in my family was, it was my dad who was there to, take care of the bill. You go to a restaurant, my dad would pay. It would have never been appropriate for me as his child to pay for that dinner. So we actually start to learn it's about give and take. It wasn't about really gifting and receiving.
um,
And one of the things with Right Voice for You or Conscious Horse or a lot of the tools with Access Consciousness, it's opening the door to this energetic gift and receive, which is what a contribution really is. And horses, they're present because they be. They're being. They're not doing anything. They're being. They're being themselves. They're connected to the earth. And if you look at the earth, like, look at an apple, right? The tree that bears fruit, it doesn't say to you, you can pick this apple because you own me. That tree doesn't care if you own it or not. It's gifting that apple. Now, the minute you grab it, you just gift it to that tree by receiving it.
Mm.
And if we allow, it is truly this gifting and receiving with horses too. Horses don't say, I'm only gonna gift you information, energies, learning things because you give me food. It assumes you will give me food if you own me. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it
exactly.
assumes that there is no even assume. It's the presumptive reality. But it's not saying because you don't own me, I'm not going to give you a ride or I'm not going to do this. Like animals, when they're being themselves, they're being present. There is none of that in their universe. That's
Wow.
more as man-made. We created
Yeah.
that.
More like
Like,
the
oh,
selfish part.
you could call it selfish, but that's what all people know. They grew up
Yeah.
that way. They don't know the difference of a receiving versus gifting. They don't know the difference of giving and taking because to them it's all one, but it's a different energy. I have someone who was translating one of my classes, and I'll give you just as an example in a day-to-day life. It was very interesting. Like, did she do the job? Yes. Did she do it when she needed to do it? Yes. Check mark, check
Wow.
mark, check mark. But ooh, the energy of it, you knew was a take and a give. Where someone else, wow, you really perceived their
Wow.
universe. It was this gift and take. They were on a different time zone. They did it in their morning, which was in the middle of our night. Like there was the delivery. Yes, I did do this, but it was from here. Here's this dish I'm offering
Oh,
you.
no.
And it was
Oh my
such
God.
a different experience. And we know
Wow.
it. If each of you guys thinks a moment in your life at a restaurant or talking to a friend or whatever, just think of different moments in your life where you truly felt it was this oneness of gifting and receiving. And when was it that it was transactional? Here, this is what you get, kind of
Wow.
thing. And there's none of that in a horse's world.
No. That's the word that I was looking for. Oneness. It's like the connection with everything at the same time. And it's like, wow, that's truly
Yeah.
trusting, feeling that oneness with the universe, with with everyone. Like,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
And you,
Thank you, Lale.
oh, you're so welcome. And I want to also talk about one of the exercises that we do in the 2-day
Yes.
Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider class. Actually, it's called the trust exercise. And it's interesting because everyone's going to experience it totally different, but I'm just going to give you my version of it. Okay. The first time I did it, it was in Texas, actually. And it was um, with Gary Douglas, who's the founder of Access Consciousness and Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider. And he said, hey, come. People come, jump on. And you had different people who were terrified of horses. And you had people who were riding for years, 20 years, 30 years, what you would call an expert. Okay. Each one experienced it so different. And it seems at first it's about you trusting the horse. And it is. It becomes this exercise of you and the horse getting to know each other, trusting each other, you having the trust to be on top of the horse, sit on the horse. But that minute that exercise starts with you laying down or leaning forward, whichever you prefer, It's what that horse shows you
Wow.
about you, trusting you. I think that energy is going to
I was
speak
like,
much louder.
I know. Wow. It's like it's no words to that. It's like I can like see like myself doing that exercise. It's like amazing. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
really trust, like because so many points of view came out through my head, like, oh, what about if it's too tall and I'm gonna fall? What about if I lean forward and something happened? What about if I leave to my back and it's like, wow, it's trusting the horses
Well,
and trusting you also.
well, good news. You also have five people there. You have two people in the back, two in the front, and one holding the horse. So, and this is again how quickly our mind
Yeah,
goes to what can go wrong
exactly. Oh
instead
my God.
of instead of that trust.
Wow.
Very different. Such a different thing, you know?
I know.
Um,
Oh my God. And that you can apply that exercise to like I think everything in life, to be honest. Like
yeah.
to money, to relationships, to everything. It's like the universe. Like I was seeing a video when I read a book about like the universe has your back a long time ago. And it's about that. It's about like just surrender and trusting. And it's amazing.
Yeah. And what if it is, yeah. I don't even want to say much words after what we
I know.
just talked about. I just would love to leave that energy
I know.
for
Oh my
people.
God.
But really invite everyone. There's conscious horse,
Yes.
conscious rider classes happening all around the world. Literally, I have a friend who was in Taiwan recently. They did it in Italy. We're going to do one next weekend in Miami. Everyone's invited. You can
Yes.
come from any country, it's so easy and it's warm. You can come to a warm place
Yes.
and a beach if you like a beach. Um, but like that's the gift, like what if it is also exploring out of the box? Because we didn't learn about horses, in school. It wasn't one of the
Yes.
tools we learned. But what if it could be that way?
Yeah, it's amazing. And that's the invitation. Like it's more energy than words that we can say it about this class. And it's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll have some information below, and you
Yes.
guys can go to globalwellnessforall.com/events and find the Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider, as well as the Right Voice for You class that's coming up there in Miami as well in the middle of
Yes.
May. And yeah, I really wonder like what is possible because for me personally, I've done the trust exercise I don't even know how many times. It's probably more than 10 or 12 times. And
Wow.
each time was a different experience. So it's not just you trust yourself and you don't need to do this, but it's like, what else is possible
Wow.
of being you, trusting your knowing, and what else you can actually create with your life. So thank
That
you,
is
Mario. So
amazing.
glad to
Thank you,
have you.
Lale, for having me here. So I think for
Oh,
the
so
Spanish
welcome.
speaker that are gonna see this in my page, that we're gonna have a translation, maybe we're gonna put some translations or so y los invito a todos a que vengan a la clase. Así que,
Hmm.
bueno, gracias, Lale. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll see you soon.
All right, see ya.
All right, everyone. Thank you. Bye, you
Thank
guys.